Today we're going to be comparing the 2017 Switch to the Switch OLED. Welcome back to 128KB, Andy here, and yes, we're going to be talking about the Switch OLED and the OG 2017 Nintendo Switch. So I got the Nintendo Switch at launch back in 2017, and obviously it's been a little while now, to be honest. I've always loved the Switch. I love everything that it stands for because I'm a handheld gamer, but I also love playing on a home system, you know, on the TV. So this doing like 2-in-1 really hit it off for me. And I'm a big Nintendo fan anyway, even though, you know, some things they've done have been questionable and the flops like the Wii U and stuff, even though I actually think that's quite a good console and we've got videos on that. Check it out. And also, if you haven't checked them out yet, we've got loads of other videos on the Switch OLED. We've got unboxings, tutorials, guides. We've got versus the Switch Lite as well that Christina did. There's just so many more videos, so go check them out if you haven't seen them already. But yeah, back to it. So I've always loved the Switch, the original Switch, but there were some things that always kind of bothered me. I mean, in terms of build quality, always felt a bit flimsy, a little bit cheap. The way the Joy-Cons rattled a little bit in their sort of like sliders. Also seeing people having cracking issues in certain countries with certain like humidity and temperatures. I've never had that problem on my own, but it always just felt like it could have been better. Now, obviously Nintendo had no idea that the Switch was going to be such a huge success, so they kind of just went, yeah, well, that's what it is, there you go. So going ahead to 2019, they changed the processor in the Switch to one that's more efficient. So it basically cut the power output down by half, which increased the battery life by almost double, but there was no performance gain really, it was just a battery life improvement, everything else was the same. However, for me, that actually loved playing handheld a lot, I found the original 2017 Switch, the battery life was pretty poor, but I didn't really see that as a good enough upgrade to just trade my Switch in for something that was exactly the same, but just had better battery life. So, you know, I just kept the one that I had, but it was always a bit of a niggle. And now, like 4 years on, you know, the battery life could be better because obviously batteries degrade over time. So it already had rubbish battery life and then it got worse. But with the Switch OLED, when I saw that it had the improved 2019 processor, so basically it just has better battery life compared to the 2017 model, then it had all these other upgrades and changes, then I was interested. I know so many people were like, meh, you know, it's not a big upgrade, OLED's not very good and all this kind of stuff, like, you know, make it better, I want the Pro version. Well, Nintendo were never really gonna do that. Look at the 3DS and the DS and the Game Boy, all that kind of stuff with the XL versions and things like that. It was kind of obvious it was gonna be an incremental upgrade rather than like a substantial one. They're gonna save that for the Switch 2 or whatever, you know, they might do a Switch Pro, but it won't be for a few years yet. But going back to the Switch OLED versus the actual Switch, well, the changes are actually quite big, to be honest, as a user in handheld mode. Obviously, this doesn't really apply to you if you're a docked only player. You're probably not even going to be watching this anyway, but anyway. So the improvements, the build quality is so much better. They've used a different kind of plastic material, which hopefully you can see. I mean, I do have a top-down running here. So the actual plastics used, it just feels so much nicer. So let's get the other one. And you can probably see that obviously this one's got like some fingerprints on it and stuff, but it actually has marked the plastic where sort of over time it's just kind of got a bit greasy and whatever, you know. Whereas look at the reflection change. So there's quite a difference between the original Switch and the new one. This one has like a mattified finish to it, and it's also like slightly textured, whereas this is really smooth, and you can see it's fingerprint magnet everywhere. I mean, stylistically as well, you can see the difference here. I mean, look at all the rubbish that's on here, all the like trademark stuff and all that stuff that they have to put on there. And then look at this one. Like, it's so much nicer. And obviously they've just hidden that underneath the kickstand. So underneath there is where all the rubbish goes, which you're never gonna see anyway. So, you know, it's just so much nicer to have that cleaner aesthetic. But one massive change is actually on the front. So clearly everyone knows we've got a bigger screen here. So the original Switch is 6.2 inches. and the Switch OLED is 7 inches. And you can see if I get our light reflection on there, you can see how much bigger that screen really is. I mean, it is a lot bigger, and you can't really see it because it's not on, but I'm sure you'll be seeing some other clips being displayed here. The screen is massively large in comparison to the original, and also the blacks are so much better, and you can even see where that screen is on this version here, the original version, whereas on the new one you can't really tell where the screen is and where the sort of borders are. But on the 2017 model, you've got like a sort of a mattified area here, and then you've got gloss, like high gloss everything else. So the like sort of border around the actual Switch essentially is, and around the screen, if it wants to focus, there we go, is actually like this sort of matte sort of finish around. Whereas if we get the Switch OLED, it's high gloss all the way around. So you can see that sort of strip just there. It is like a high gloss finish around the entire thing. And I love that. Even though I'm not a big high gloss person because it is a fingerprint magnet, you're never really going to touch this area of the screen anyway. And as long as you have, you know, your handy little cloth, which I've got in my back pocket, like this, you know, just give it a rub down every sort of time you're going to use it or whatever, then you're not really going to notice anyway, but it just makes it look more premium. And yes, you can sort of see if we look at the top that sort of edge finishes on the front there. It doesn't go anywhere else. It's just sort of the faceplate of it, and on the base as well. Now, even on the base, you can see that they've changed the serial number, and the serial number is hidden underneath the stand as well. But that's not the only change. I mean, obviously the top is different as well. We've got the power buttons and the volume buttons, and the game card slot is actually different as well. So we've got a different design on there, so you can see that there is a different design. Some people find it a bit more difficult to open. I find it easy to open, but I do have nails. But one thing that's changed, and considerably changed from the 2017 model to this, and they didn't really say that there was going to be a Joy-Con change, but the Joy-Cons are different. They are definitely different material. So they've changed the material. So if you look at the 2017 version on the top down just here, you can probably see, let's try and get it in the light. Can you see there's sort of like rub wear marks all the way around? And that's because the material on this is like a strange like plastic. It's a very smooth plastic. Yes, these have had quite a lot of use, but that really shouldn't have worn down as much as that. I mean, I don't even put my finger across, or my thumb like around this area, so I don't even really know how that's happened, because I sit with my thumbs on it like this. I don't like kind of like weirdly scrape my thumb across it. So if you look at that, you can see all that sort of wear, which is on both Joy-Cons, whereas on the new one, it's got a totally different feel to it. I mean, you might hear it. Let's just go to the microphone first. So this is the 2017 version. It's almost a little bit tacky, if you can hear that. Whereas let's go to the new OLED version. Can you hear how it's sort of smooth? And it feels, you can sort of hear the sound is a little bit louder, just because the actual material is different and it's got a nicer finish. It's smoother, but it feels just more hard wearing. It feels more rugged, essentially. More rugged. Come on, Andy, get your words out. But Nintendo actually did an interview with two of the sort of designers that helped develop the new Switch, and they even said, yes, we have improved the Joy-Cons very slightly in terms of they're always looking to make them harder wearing. And even though they didn't actually come out and say, yes, we've changed the plastic from this to this, I can tell the difference, and I didn't even notice that until I was actually using it, and just went, overall the whole thing feels more premium. And definitely one of those premium upgrades is the new material on the Joy-Cons, so that's quite a big thing. Now, in terms of everything else, obviously, if you know already, then the Switch 2017 Switch has 32 gigabytes of storage. The new one has 64, so it's doubled in space. I'd still recommend that you get an SD card. We've got videos about that if you're wondering about which to buy and how to do it and stuff like that. So check those out. But yeah, that's an upgrade, so that's cool. Obviously, you've got the enhanced audio. So the enhanced audio is fantastic. The enhanced audio is ridiculously good, and I love the placement of the speakers. If you look at the original Switch, I mean, those speakers, they're rubbish. They're tiny, they're on the face of the Switch, it looks horrible, but you go to the Switch OLED, and they're not there at all, because they're actually on the edge. They're on this lip on the front. So again, they've really thought about how can we make this more aesthetically pleasing and just more premium in general. But those speakers, the quality of the speakers are fantastic. If you've seen our sort of like 1 week on from the Switch OLED video, then you'll know that I absolutely love the speakers on here. There's a huge difference in sound quality and volume as well to me. Yes, I have a musical background. I studied music at uni, but I'm a performer rather than a techie. So I don't know all the ins and outs, but I can definitely tell the difference between these speakers and the original ones, and it really helps with that immersion when playing in handheld. I'd always recommend using headphones if possible, because that really improves your sort of immersion, but just the speakers, I've been loving using this on the speakers. Now, of course, the biggest change here is essentially the screen. So the 2017 screen, it's 6.2 inches and it's LCD. It's not very good. The colors are washed out. You can often see the LED panels behind, so the way that it's backlit is sort of by zones, and that's what gives it that sort of like white washed out sort of grayness to certain blacks and stuff like that. Whereas on an OLED, individual pixels are lit. So when it goes black, they actually turn the pixels off, and it really helps to give that extra contrast. The saturation is also boosted because of this contrast change, and it just looks fantastic. It looks absolutely amazing, and to the point where I would say the 2017 Switch feels like, I don't know, the Vita, the PS Vita, the PlayStation Vita that came out in 2011, I think looks better than the 2017 screen, just in terms of screen. I'm not on about like the games and, you know, how much resolution there are. I just mean the quality of the screen, because the 2017 Switch's screen is just really not that good. And when you finally have a go on the Switch OLED, it feels like a 10-year difference. Like, it's that good a change from one to the other. It honestly feels amazing. It really does feel good. And you won't really see this change until you see it in person, because when you're watching videos, you're using cameras to basically film another screen that you're then going to watch on another device. It's not going to translate properly. You really need to see it with your own eyes. And that's the same with any sort of screen technology. You'll never see it until you see it in person. But honestly, for me, it's so much better. There's also a thing that's about perceivable sort of almost motion blur, perceivable motion blur. Basically what it means is the original Switch's screen, because of that LCD technology, is blurrier in faster moving areas, whereas the OLED screen is faster, essentially refreshing, or the perceivable motion of it that makes it look sharper. So if you paused the game or took a screenshot on like a fast moving area, the Switch on the original Switch would actually be a blurrier image than the crispness of the OLED. So there is actually a noticeable sort of image quality upgrade. So even though there's no performance upgrade, it visually feels like that. So when you're playing on it, it's sharper because of that higher contrast. The edges of each character or whatever feel better, like they look sharper. And also because that motion blur, perceived motion blur, is cut down, it just feels better quality in all areas. It really, really does. And again, the overall experience of everything coming together, I really do think that the Switch OLED is a worthwhile upgrade from a 2017 Switch. So if you've got a 2017 Switch right now and you just play docked, well, then probably don't bother. You can buy the Switch dock separately. Yes, there are some differences in the dock. Honestly, the only change is that the new dock has an Ethernet port so that you can plug in the internet and have consistent internet rather than just relying on Wi-Fi from the other dock. But other than that, it's pretty much the same. But yeah, I mean, the dock, it does look nicer. It's got a better aesthetic. It's just better in general. But I mean, I wouldn't say that that's worthwhile upgrading if you're just a dock player. If you're on the fence and you do sort of half docked, half handheld, then yeah, I'd probably say it is worthwhile upgrading. However, you've really got to consider the cost of upgrade. It depends on your own personal situation, and it depends on what matters to you. Would you rather spend that money on getting a bunch more games, or buying the new Switch Online expansion pack and getting all the N64 games and stuff like that? Or would you prefer to have a better handheld experience? You've got to weigh it up yourself, really. But for me, I definitely think it's an upgrade worth doing. If you have a Switch 2017 Switch and you just play handheld, hands down, upgrade. You're going to get better battery life, better audio, a much better screen. There's nothing to say about it than just upgrade. Trade your old Switch in, go sell it or give it to a family member or whatever, and go get a new Switch. But before you do that, when you got the new OLED model, go watch our video to how to transfer everything from one to another, because there's some tips on there you don't want to miss. But if you've got no Switch at all, then yeah, just go for the OLED model. I would 100% get an OLED model if you're anywhere near interested in playing handheld. But that about wraps it up, really. I mean, in terms of which is better, I've got to give it to it. The Switch OLED hands down wipes the floor with the original 2017 model. It's just better. If you've got the 2019 red box Switch version, then things are a little bit different. But again, it's the same things apply. Everything I've said in this video applies to the red box version as well, essentially, because the only change there in the red box version is that it's got better battery life. But the battery life from the Switch OLED is far better than the battery life on the 2017 Switch. So I'm not very well at the minute. I've got a cold. It's nothing else, don't worry. And I pretty much spent all of yesterday just in bed playing Metroid Dread, and one charge almost did me a whole day. It was that good. I had to charge it by sort of late afternoon, evening, but I got seriously good charge out of that, whereas the original Switch now, I probably only get 2 hours battery life, maybe a little bit more. But anyway, what are your thoughts? Have you upgraded from a 2017 Switch or a Redbox Switch or a Switch Lite? If you haven't seen our Switch Lite versus the OLED video, go check that out as well. And stick around for more videos because there's plenty more coming from where this one's come from. But anyway, check out our website, 128kb.co.uk. I'm Andy, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.